You're muted.
All right, let's start again. On behalf of the Jewish Center Adult Ed Committee, my name is Tirzah Warman. I'm thrilled to welcome you tonight to a special talk being given by Rajan Narayanaswamy on Introduction to the Hindu Faith and Culture. As probably many of you know, Hinduism is the world's oldest religion, according to many scholars, with roots and customs dating back more than 4,000 years. And we can have a foot fight later with Judaism, but that's not our intent tonight. Our intent tonight is to learn about this wonderfully rich culture. And today, with about 900 million followers, Hinduism is the third largest religion behind Christianity and Islam. And roughly 95% of the world's Hindus live in India. And shout out tonight to many people, chiefly John Katz and Moshe Margolin of the Adult Ed Committee for inviting me to participate in this wonderful program. And to my friend on the West Windsor Environmental Commission, Hema Shankar, who invited me to Rajan, who invited me to learn about Rajan and the Shimnai Temple. Rajan Narayanaswamy is a PhD, a very active and prominent member of the Chinmaya Mission, which is located in Cranberry, which is a renowned religious and spiritual institution. And the Chinmaya Mission excels in teaching children the noble human values of honesty, compassion, and nonviolence, which are enshrined in the teaching of Hinduism and its culture. I can think of no better speaker to tell us about the tenets of Hinduism and what it means in modern life today than Rajan Narayanaswamy. And I'm delighted to invite him to be our speaker. I will leave it to him to pace himself. You are all on mute, but if you use the chat, I'll be moderating the chat tonight and we'll take down your questions. And during a pause of Rajan's choosing, I will relay the questions to him. So without further ado tonight, let's welcome Rajan Narayanaswamy. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Tirzah and John and the whole Jewish Center for welcoming me to this talk, giving me the chance. I feel so happy to be presenting the Hindu faith to you all. I have met Tirzah several times. We have had some small Zoom meetings of our own to discuss this program, and I have understood a lot about your organization, and I feel very welcomed here. And I'm going to try my best to explain the Hindu faith and culture as best as I can. I asked Tirzah to give me 2 classes for this because Hinduism is very vast. And in the talks, today's talk, I'm going to focus mainly on introducing all the facets of Hinduism, because there are many facets, many pieces to it, many subjects that it has spawned. And in the second talk, which is on the 23rd, I'm going to go into the nitty-gritty and details of 2 of these topics. I will talk about that as I introduce this talk today. So thank you once again, and we can get started. I will share my screen now, and most of the talk will be in the form of a PowerPoint presentation. Okay, I hope everybody can see the slides. Okay, very good.
Yes.
So, introduction to Hindu faith and culture. My name is Rajan Narayanaswamy. Narayana Swami means it's another name for Lord Vishnu, as you know, one of the trinity of the gods. Most Indian people have God's names. This is your first hint of how important religion is in India. Most people will have the name of a god as a last name or a first name. And that's my contact information, and that's my website. It's more of a blog than a website. And I just want to introduce the talk summary for today and for the 23rd. So today I'm going to be giving an outline of the Hindu religion and a brief description of the many facets and branches of the Hindu religion. I will also introduce the Chinmaya mission a little bit. I'm a very active member there. I teach yoga there, and I also take Vedanta classes, spiritual classes, and also volunteer at the mission. I will give you an introduction to what the Chinmaya mission is. And of course, we invite you all to visit us once the pandemic is over, of course. Right now, the temple is closed. All of you, please do come and have a look at the things we do, and you can see it with your own eyes. I'll show you as much as I can today. And then in the end, I'm going to do a Swadhisthana Chakra meditation. I will explain what that is when we get to the meditation. And the Q&A at the end, but also in between, we will pause for some time. If you have any questions, as Tirza said, put it in the chat and I will try to explain. Let me remind you, I'm not an expert on the Hindu religion. So if I cannot answer, I'm just going to be honest and tell you I don't know the answer exactly, and I can get back to you, okay? In the second talk on the 23rd, I'm going to pick two of the topics and go deep into them. One of them is Vedanta. I will explain what Vedanta is in today's talk. And the second one is the Bhagavad Gita, which is, if you can think of one book which a Hindu person would say represents the whole of Hinduism, it is the Bhagavad Gita. And I will go into these two in detail in the next talk. And I will do a different meditation called the Expanded Awareness Meditation, which touches on the topic of Vedanta directly, and of course, Q&A. With that, let's delve into the subject directly. The Hindu religion is also known as Sanatana Dharma. This is a very common name used for the Hindu religion. Sanatana Dharma basically means, Sanatana means eternal, and Dharma is a word which is difficult to translate to English. It represents a lot of things. It represents a way of life, a righteous way of living, a compassionate way of living, duty. What are your duties? All these things are represented by dharma. So Sanatana Dharma basically means eternal way of living rather than a religion. But the eternal way of living also involves things which are religious, which we will come to. The Hindu religion, also Sanatana Dharma, is based on mainly the four Vedas. The Vedas are the most ancient books, and they are timed to around 10,000 to 20,000 years back. They were written, not actually written, they were transmitted through only teachings. So there are four Vedas: Rig Veda, Sama Veda, Yajur Veda, and Atharvana Veda. You'll be surprised to hear that the original Rig Veda is actually in Germany, because German scholars studied this a lot and somehow it landed up in Germany. There are copies of Rig Veda in many places. The Vedas are also called Shruti. Shruti means that which has been heard. And the reason it is told like that is because for many, many thousands of years, the Vedas were transmitted from guru to disciple only by voice. There was nobody ever wrote, nobody took notes or anything. They just heard it and they asked questions and they argued, and that's how it was transmitted. and then it goes to the next generation and so on. The religion also has a huge storage of stories in the form of what are called Puranas. And the Puranas they convey the same message, a lot of the messages that the Vedas convey, but in the form of stories and allegories. And it's meant for people who cannot get the intellectual grasp of the Vedas. Also, the religion includes several epics, two very famous epics. I will mention them later on. They are called the Itihasa, or historical epics. And then lastly, Vedanta. And I told you I'm going to treat this in more detail in the next class. Vedanta is the philosophical part of the Vedas and is considered the last frontier and the ultimate teaching of Hinduism. It is the PhD level of Hinduism, and it is not taught in the beginning to people because there is a preparatory phase, and then it is taught when the student is ready. The guru decides, okay, now is the time to convey this knowledge to the student. So this is the basic outline. A few more things. This quote here from Swami Chinmayananda, who is the founder of the Chinmaya Mission, which is in Cranberry. This beautiful quote: more important than what is behind you and what is ahead of you is what is in you. Seek it, and centered in it, I cannot see the full quote, centered in it, act and live. Now, as much as possible in today's talk, I will try to explain what this means, but this will become more clear in the second talk. I'm sort of building up the audience for the second talk by mentioning the second talk, but I could not do it in today's talk because in the 45 minutes, I'll be able to cover only the facets, which are quite a lot actually. Now, the Hindu religion. I try to describe the Hindu religion in a few sentences here. It's a way of living that has seeped into the many facets of everyday life in the Indian subcontinent. Anywhere you go in India, you'll see the impact of a religion. The Hindu religion is a philosophy not just for discussions and arguments, but to practically apply to one's life. It is a system that recognizes that there are people of different temperaments who need different paths to their liberation. I will explain that also. It is a teaching that points at you. You means I'm talking about each of these rectangles that are there on the Zoom call just now. Each one of you, and to everybody in the world, to say the words of Rumi. This is what the Hindu religion says. You were born with wings, why are you crawling? The Hindu religion points to us and says that you don't have to suffer, you don't have to be anxious, and you don't have to be afraid because you are all powerful. And we are not talking about the power here to conquer a kingdom and become a king. This is the power to attain inner peace. And the Hindu religion points to us and says, Tattvamasi, which is the famous Mahavakya, what is called, that you are that. The ultimate teaching of Hinduism is that you are not a human looking for divinity, but you are a divine being thinking you are human. Due to your ignorance, this is the highest teaching of the Hindu religion, that you are actually divine, but you think you're human. Now, as I mentioned in the second talk, I'm going to talk about Bhagavad Gita. The Bhagavad Gita is an extremely important scripture for the Hindus. The Chinmaya mission gives it a very special treatment. And everybody in the Chinmaya mission is taught the whole Bhagavad Gita. All the 706 verses are taught in great detail in a very systematic fashion because it is a very practical document. The Bhagavad Gita has been praised by many Western authors and intellectuals. And I just want to show you the quotes of two individuals who have praised the Bhagavad Gita. First one, Ralph Waldo Emerson. He said, after reading the Bhagavad Gita, I owed a magnificent day to the Bhagavad Gita. It was the first of books. It was as if an empire spoke to us, nothing small or unworthy, but large, serene, consistent, the voice of an old intelligence, which in another age and climate had pondered and thus disposed of the same questions which exercise us. See, this points to the goal of Hindu religion. The goal of Hindu religion is basically to improve the human situation. And 5,000 years ago, when the Bhagavad Gita happened in the war of Mahabharata, Ralph Waldo Emerson is telling us that somebody had pondered the same questions that exercise us today, the same problems that we all have, that we all face, of hate in the world and lack of love and and problems with the environment and so many things. We face all these things. Somebody has thought about these things in the past, and we need to look to the scriptures to get the answers to that. And Henry David Thoreau said this, the famous author of Walden Pond. In the morning, I bathe my intellect in the stupendous and cosmogonal philosophy of the Bhagavad Gita, in comparison with which our modern world and its literature seem puny and trivial. This is what he said about Bhagavad Gita. And the Bhagavad Gita is today taught in management school because its teachings help you to become a good manager. And our own Swamiji, Swami Shantanandji, who is the main Swami in our temple here, ashram, he takes a course in Bhagavad Gita in Seton Hall University, actually. He teaches a course because everybody has found how useful it is. And you'll see in the second talk when I get into Bhagavad Gita. Okay. And now here is the facets of Hinduism that I talked about. And I will go through these one by one, try to complete it in the time I have. So I'll be running through these very quickly. So briefly, I'll tell you what these are. Sanatana Dharma is on the top that we have already talked about, eternal religion or eternal way of living. The four paths I will talk about. This is because, as I mentioned, there are paths for people of different temperaments. Then the rituals, then festivals, temple economy, yoga. I'm a yoga teacher, so I will delve a little bit into this yoga topic. The epics, sages and saints, classical music, worship of nature, inspiring stories, guru-disciple tradition, activities as Chinmaya mission, and Vedanta and Bhagavad Gita are reserved for the next class, although I will just briefly tell you what it is if I have the time. So let me straight go to the four paths. There are a few more paths also, but these are the main four paths for spiritual progress and eventual liberation. Liberation means liberation from suffering, anxiety, fear, all these things. The path of Karma Yoga is meant for people with busy lives. who are career oriented, and they're not, they don't have the time, too much time to devote to this for prayers or whatever. They're busy. For them also there is a path, and that's called karma yoga. It is expounded in the movie The Legend of Bagger Vance, that I was talking to Tirza about once, uh, which starred Will Smith and who is the other actor? My daughter will know. I should ask her. Who is the actor, Pooja? Yeah. So the legend of Bagger Vance is based on Bhagavad Gita, and it talks about karma yoga a lot. It's about a failed golf champ and how he brings his career back. So karma yoga applies to people with busy lives. Bhakti yoga is the path of love for God. It's meant for people who are emotional people. And you must have seen the Hare Krishna people singing in the streets in some places. They just sing the name of the Lord, and they don't want anything else. That is the path of Bhakti yoga. Jnana yoga is the path of knowledge. It's called the method of self-inquiry. It is meant for the intellectual type of people who are interested in spiritual progress. Raja yoga, or the yoga that is popular. If somebody says, I'm going to a yoga class, this is the path. This is Raja yoga. But of course, the business of yoga focuses more on just exercise and breathing, but there are some more limbs to this. It's an 8-limbed system. And I'm going to deal with this later on in another slide. So these are the 4 paths. It is a path involving practice. It's a path with actual practices. So these are the 4 main paths. The next topic in that lotus that we saw was rituals. Now, rituals are very unique in Hindu faith, and they are very elaborate. So rituals are very elaborately defined and carried out by specially trained purohits, they are called. You can see in this picture, the 2 of them wearing white clothes. They are purohits, and they are very well trained. In fact, some of these courses are 8 years long. They have to attend, but not these purohits. Some of them who are very senior purohits have to do a course for 8 years. Trained in Vedic methods, rituals usually are a sign of deep devotion to a particular deity like Lord Shiva, Lord Ganesha, etc. All Hindu temples have a set of daily rituals that have to be performed without fail. Every festival like Navaratri, which is the 9 days devoted to the 3 main goddesses, Durga, Lakshmi, and Saraswati, or Diwali, all of you must have heard about it, I'm sure. The festival of lights have special rituals and chants associated with them. Now here, the ritual that you're seeing is called Chappan Bhog. What you see here is, I will show a zoomed version of this picture a little later. This is 56 varieties of foods are prepared for serving God. And they're all laid down there, and it is not just 56 varieties. There are certain rules for it, like a certain number of them should have to be fruits, some of them have to be grains, some of them have to be vegetables, and so on. And they are doing a ritual right now. What they are doing is the arti, which is the showing of the lamp to God. Now, some more pictures of rituals. This is a ritual. You can see how beautifully the idol has been decked up with garlands and clothes. It's a very important part of the ritual is to dress up the idols with love and affection. And then they chant the what are called the stotrams. So there are stotrams for each god. So they will chant for that god, whichever festival is whatever is being done on that time. Here is a zoomed version of this Chappan Bhog. You can see all the foods that have been prepared for Lord Krishna in the middle. These are brought in by volunteers, and of course, after that, everybody eats these things. In festivals, Indians eat a lot of food. That's the enjoyment part of every festival. This is another festival for Lord Ganesha. What you see, those small plates there, they have the small balls which are sweets. And there are 10,000 of them here. We offer 10,000 of these. And after it is kept here and the rituals are done, people take these home as prasad or offerings of gods. And here is this is the Radha Krishna idol in the Chinmaya mission. Once again, I just wanted to show how beautifully they deck this up. This is a daily ritual. So every day they have this. You can't leave these clothes on for next 10 days. You have to keep changing them on a regular basis. That is the respect you have to give to the idol. And you have to wash the idols, clean the idols. That's the job of the Purohit. And they have a ritual for that. They don't just clean it. They have a particular way of doing it, and steps are there. Now I move on to the topic of festivals. So festivals is another facet that has been spawned by the Hindu religion. A huge number of festivals are celebrated all over India. I just listed only a few here, but they say that every day there is a festival in India. So there are more than 365 festivals in India. They're celebrated with tremendous enthusiasm throughout India and among the Hindu community all around the world. Even in America, we celebrate a lot of these festivals. Diwali is the festival of lights, represents victory of good over evil. Holi is the festival of colors, characterized by people spraying colored water and powders on each other. All these colored things are made from plants. They are all biodegradable substances. Ganesh Chaturthi, celebrating the birth of elephant god Ganesha, the remover of obstacles. Rama Navami, celebrating the birth of Lord Rama. And then Navaratri, which is very famous in America, we really celebrated very big in New Jersey, actually. 9 nights of celebrating the 3 goddesses, Durga, Lakshmi, and Saraswati. Durga protects us from evil tendencies. Lakshmi gives us wealth and prosperity. Saraswati gives us knowledge. On Saraswati Puja, what we do is, it is the last 3 days of the 9 nights. The previous night, everybody in the family will leave their favorite book, and it's kept covered up near the goddess whole night in your favorite book, in whichever subject you want to improve yourself. So next morning, we do a little puja, that means the worship, and then we open the book and read it there in front of the goddess, and asking her to bless us with the ability to understand that subject. Okay, now I'll move on to the next one. I just have some pictures of the Hindu festivals here. This is the Holi festival. Just look at the bright colors. This was National Geographic did a special on this festival. And if you Google National Geographic Holi, you'll see the amazing pictures they put up of this festival. This is real. This is not made up for the photography session. This really happens. And you can see here the colors. Diwali festival, we light lamps, and we do firecrackers, and also small things that we hold in the hand, which are like small fire things. And we eat a lot of sweets. You can see here they're eating what is called laddu, which is a very popular sweet. And they're all dressed up. Everybody wears new clothes on this day. And we eat a lot. As I said, in festivals, Indians will eat a lot of food. And all the restaurants, even in New Jersey, have specials on these days where people can go and eat a big buffet of excellent food. And now I come to a very interesting topic. I think this topic is unique to the Hindu and Indian uh, subcontinent, what I call the temple economy. So, a unique feature that has arisen out of Hindu faith is what we may call the temple based economy. Magnificent temples all around, all over India, abound all over India, some built by kings that ruled ancient India, and some recently. Some temples have a special sacredness that makes them very popular and revenue grossing as well. Famous temples with special sacred significance spawn a thriving economy around them, providing thousands of jobs and occupations. Modern temples built by rich communities or a wealthy industrialist are popular as tourist spots and likewise generate a thriving economy around them. And I've listed some of the occupations that a temple generates. The temples themselves employ a huge number of staff because of the size of the temples and the number of activities that happen there. Temples are very busy places. Right, most of the temples in India will open at like 3 a.m. in the morning with lot of rituals in the morning. The morning time is very busy. And then there's a little break in between, then it continues. And in the evening, there are again big rituals. So they need a lot of staff for this. So they employ a lot of staff. So temples are big employers. And when you go into a temple as a devotee, you carry flowers and sweets for God. And so there are a lot of flowers and sweet shops outside the temple. So they also get a business by that. Of course, there are restaurants and there are hotels because people visit big temples. They don't just spend a few hours, they spend several days there because there is so much to see inside the temple. These temples are huge, really huge. And then, of course, taxi and other transportation, they all have business. And you should see some of these temples to really see how big they are. They are enormous. I'll give you a few examples here. Madurai Meenakshi Temple. These towers that you see, there are 7 towers like this. And it's really huge. It will take hours to take a tour of this temple, to see the whole temple. This is built by the ancient kings, probably around 800 to 700 years ago. And you can see the number of people there standing. The crowds in temples are huge. One of the later pictures you'll see also. Here is the inside of this temple. Look at the beautiful architecture of this temple, made on a grand scale. Now here, what you see here are tailors. And I had mentioned that the idols inside the temples have to have clothes. And these tailors have a permanent job with the temple to stitch clothes. The whole day they are stitching clothes because in the big temples, the clothes are changed every day. Every day, the idol has to wear new clothes. So they are all the time stitching clothes, and they all have employment because of that. And there are other associated tailoring like supply and all that, who keep supplying the clothes for these things and do the other things like embroidery work and beads, all these things. There are all these associated small scale industries that operate to supply this huge supply for clothes for the temple. Then there are these shops that I told you about. See, these are shops that are selling all kinds of religious items like paintings, garlands, incense sticks, and all these kind of things. They all have good business because of the crowd. You see, there's always a moving crowd. So this is all part of the beautiful temple economy. Some of the cities in India completely survive because of the presence of the temple. If you just hypothetically take the temple out, there'll be nothing in that city left. The temple by itself generates a whole economy. This is a temple built in Delhi, modern temple called Akshardham. I don't know if you all have seen the temple built in Robbinsville in New Jersey. Built on the same style. If you get a chance, go visit this temple. This is the one in Delhi in India. It's a massive temple and generates, again, a huge amount of economy around itself because of the popularity of this place for tourism and all that. This is the temple, Rameshwaram temple. It's in an island in the southern part, outside the southern part of India, near Sri Lanka. It's a massive temple, one of the biggest temples in India. Look at the architecture, and the size of this corridor is 1/2 mile. The whole rectangle, the square around the temple is 1 mile. So just imagine the size of this temple. Once again, generates a lot of economy around it. This is the Annamalayar temple. These towers that you see are approximately 170 to 200 feet high. They are massive and with very intricate architecture done on it. This is one of the most popular temples and the richest temple in India. It has an annual revenue of $2 billion, B with a B. And it's extremely famous. And look at the crowd here. This is the kind of crowd that visits this temple. And the economy is booming because of this, because of the people, the number of people who come to this temple and so on. On the right, you see it's built up, made with gold. Very famous temple, Tirupati Tirumala temple. Okay, I come to the next topic. Shall we pause for any questions, Tirza, if there are any?
Thank you so much. Yes, I thought this would be a good time to pause because I do have a number of questions. Thank you for your very informative remarks. So you talked at the very beginning about the Vedas and the different texts. And so the question was, to the extent there were oral texts, do we know roughly when they were written down?
Yeah, it's very difficult to estimate that. There's a lot of debates between scholars, but it's approximately about 8,000 to 10,000 years back. That's the age of, yeah. I would leave it to bigger scholars of Vedic history for this. If somebody has joined the call, some of my friends, I would invite them to answer on the chat. But
Okay.
approximately it's 10,000 years. Yeah, 8,000 to 10,000 years.
So, and then another question, because at the beginning, I'm sorry. At the beginning, you spoke about centeredness and individual growth as a means for, spreading one's wings, like focusing on the individual. And so the question was asked, does the Hindu religion also concern itself with group behavior and group dynamics, or is it more focused on the individual behavior?
Very good question. Yes, the Hindu faith basically says that if you work on yourself, then society will also change. And it says that if you become a good person, if you tend to improve yourself, then you start influencing other people automatically.
Mm-hmm.
It completely says to focus on yourself. Don't try to change too many things around the world, because sometimes these things are not in our control. This is one of the big messages of Bhagavad Gita, that focus on your work and don't worry about the results. Some of you may have heard about this. This is one of the teachings of the Bhagavad Gita. One of the examples given is, when a good tennis player hits a shot, he focuses on the ball, not on the other court. So you focus on the action, and then
Mm-hmm.
your game will be good. So improve yourself is always the message of the first thing to do is to improve yourself.
Okay. Then the question was asked, are the idols that you talked about at the beginning, are they considered real gods or are they more symbolic?
They are symbolic. It's more
Okay.
like, the Star Spangled Banner represents America. It's like that. So but temples have something called prana pratishtha. So when a real big temple is established, then there is a Vedic procedure to make the idol to, to pull in prana. And I don't want to introduce the topic of prana now because it becomes a big big subject in itself. But prana is basically the same thing as chi in China. The Tai Chi. If you have heard about Tai Chi, they talk about chi. Chi is the
Mhm.
energy, and Reiki, ki is energy. So same thing is called prana in Hinduism or Sanskrit. Prana is brought into the idol through certain Vedic rituals and prayers. So the idols have some special powers of healing. See, that is why these temples become so famous. So Tirupati, which I showed you, has a revenue of $2 billion. It is not famous for nothing. It is famous for its ability to heal people and to solve their problems when they visit the place. There are so many stories, and that's how it becomes so famous and popular. Something like the Lady of Lords is there. It's very famous, right? And people visit
Mhm.
that place, or the Wall of Jerusalem. They a lot of healing stories you hear. There is some effect of that, and this is the hidden part, the mystic part of Hinduism that we will talk about in the second talk. Also, Vedanta
Mhm.
also talks about these things a lot. So that was a little long answer, but
No, that's very helpful. So another question was asked, um, how many times a day would a typical observant family pray? And are there differences for Hindus who settled in this country compared to, say, back in India?
yeah, no. So generally, there is a morning prayer and an evening prayer.
Okay.
Most families, but the type of prayer is not dependent on whether you're in India or here. It depends on your, uh, should I say, uh, there are religious uh, sects, uh, like some people follow Lord Shiva, right? So they are called Shaiva.
Mhm.
Some people follow Lord Vishnu. They are called Vaishnavites. They all have different forms of prayer. So Shaivites would chant what is called Rudram. Vaishnavites will chant Vishnu Sahasranamam. So there are, and some of them are uh, goddesses. They follow the goddesses, and there are special prayers for that also. So it depends on the group, you can say, the group to which they belong, or the denomination to which they belong. The Hindu faith has a lot of denominations,
Okay.
but not on the country. So here also there are a lot. Our temple has Shiva idol and linga, the Shiva lingam. So they do
Mhm.
the Rudram every Sunday, every day. The chanting of Shiva's stotras are done. So it basically depends on the temple and the family to which denomination they belong.
Okay. And then how is it the Chinmaya mission, for example, how is the temple supported? Are there dues or is it voluntary? How does that
So
work?
yeah, so we have what is called memberships, but it's completely voluntary membership, and there are donations. So the there are fundraisers. We have fundraisers, and we'll organize like a concert or something. We'll bring a famous singer, and then people will attend the concert, and they'll buy tickets and also donate money if they want. It basically completely runs on the charity of the people, members. Yeah, it gets no money from anywhere else.
Mhm. Okay, so then, Rajan, I recall speaking with you, early on as we are getting acclimated to the topic. And the question was asked tonight. I have kind of a vague familiarity, as an American with the caste system in India. And so the question was asked by one of our attendees. Does the caste system in India have anything to do with the Hindu religion? And if not, what is its source? And I guess the third question would be, how has it evolved in modern times?
Very good question. Yes, the first answer is it is absolutely part of the religion. And it is mentioned in the Bhagavad Gita. And I'll quote the scripture for this instead of the interpretation of people and magazines and articles and all that. We have to depend on what the scripture says about this. And the scripture says, I will just say the Sanskrit verse of this. It is for those who are familiar with Bhagavad Gita. This is chapter 4, verse 13. It's famous for talking about the caste system. Chaturvarnya maya srishtam gunakarma vibhagashaha. This is what Lord Krishna says. He says the Chaturvarnya means the 4 types of varna. See, the word caste is a wrong word. The word is varna in Sanskrit. Varna actually means, you can call it a kind of occupation. It's an occupation thing, okay? Chaturvarnya maya srishtam. I created the 4 varnas. And then the next phrase is very important. Guna karma vibhagashaha. So he said that these 4 are based on the gunas and the karmas of the person. So gunas means the qualities of the person, and karma means the occupation of the person. Now the basis of this, I'll use the word caste, but actually the word is called varna vyavastha. That's what it is called. It's we all are familiar with this, but we think of it in some other way. But the way caste is interpreted is something like this. There are 4 castes: Brahmin, Kshatriya, Vaishya, and Shudra. The Brahmins are the intellectual people, the ones who are interested in studies, studying science, or academically growing, getting a PhD or something, working in NASA, these kind of people. Now, every country has these kind of people. Not everybody is interested in going and, doing a PhD, right? Why is that? Because they don't have the quality for that, and they don't have the inclination for that. So the varnas are based on only this. And I just quoted the scripture. That is how it is defined. The second one is the Kshatriyas, who are the leaders, the fighters, the people who are ready to lift their hands and legs and go do something. So a person who joins, wants to be a Navy SEAL or a Marine, for example, not everybody can do that. If I have 4 children in my house, one of them will join the Marines, the other one will say, I want to be a doctor, because they have the tendency to do that. And we know that not everybody can be a Marine. If I join the Marines, I'll be out in 2 hours when they make me run 3 rounds around the field. And then the third one is the Vaishyas, which are the business type people. The people who know, how to run a business, and how to lend money, how to loan money, how to work with money, and how to do trade, how to buy things efficiently, these are the business type people. And then the fourth one are the Shudras. The Shudras are the ones who are basically lazy and don't know what to do, and they are willing to take orders. So these are the laborers type people. So if they have a leader, they will do work. Come on, let's build this building. All of you take the bricks, put it up. Then they will do under guidance. They will work. So these four kinds of people we find in all societies around the world, and one cannot become the other so easily without considerable effort. So an intellectual guy cannot go start fighting in a war. A war guy would not be interested in joining Princeton University to do his PhD. But it's not impossible. Nothing prevents this. So this is the basic definition of the castes. And people misuse the caste a lot, as you know, and just like people misuse anything, people misuse affirmative action, for example. So that is all individuals who do this. But casteism, discriminating by caste is illegal in India. It's against the law. And the state is completely against it. And it's not allowed. In fact, India has what is called, because of the atrocities which have happened on the lower caste in the past, India has what is like an affirmative action program for them, just like we had here for people of color and so on. And it's still active. It is called reservation system. So that is the basis of casteism. And it is done and certain things also run in families because of the way a family structure is. For example, if a person is a farmer, it is very likely that his children will also become farmers because they have seen it from the childhood and they know how to do farming. They know the secrets of farming. So they may take over the farm when the dad, passes on or something. So sometimes these things run in families too. And if a person is a general in the army, some of his kids also will like to join the army. So some of these qualities run in the family. Some of them are internal qualities which you cannot change. The person has the inclination for that. So I hope that explained it to some extent.
Yeah, that's very helpful. So I guess as a follow-up question I would ask, is having lived in India, and I know you lived in Europe too, and now having lived here, how would you compare the level of social mobility in India compared to the United States?
So by social mobility, you're talking about the interaction between.
So what I mean is, I'm born in India to a laboring family, so I'm a laborer in a factory. But I want to, I have aspirations to teach literature and get a PhD. How likely is that to happen in India compared to, say, in this country?
Much more likely. And I'll tell you, the president of India, the current president, is a lower caste person. So I think in India, the sky is the limit when it comes to your caste doesn't stop you from rising up. Like you could give an examination and get into the civil services, for example, if you study hard, and nothing will prevent you from taking the highest post of the land, which is the president's land position. And same thing, since we are on this topic, even the topic of women, for example, India, all the four South Asian countries, India, Pakistan, Bangladesh, Sri Lanka, have had women prime ministers. So there is a lot. There are atrocities done on people, but at the same time, if they can break through that and the government will be on their side. The state supports these people a lot,
Mhm.
will not allow any obstructions to come. When I used to work in the government in India, I could be fired for saying anything to anybody of lower caste. If I even mention, that you are inferior to me, I'll just be fired straight away. So the rules
Wow.
are very strict.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good to know. So and thank you to all the attendees. I am really getting overwhelmed with questions, but I know that, and I am writing them down, and we do have a second session. But Rajan, what do you think? My thinking is, because I've seen all your material, that perhaps you should go back to lecture, and then if we have time toward the end, we'll come back to some questions. Does
Sure.
that work for you?
Yeah, sure. Yes.
Okay, great.
Okay. We'll move on now. The next topic is yoga. And since I'm a yoga teacher, I will devote a little time to this because this is very beneficial for people too. This is the system of yoga, or Ashtanga yoga, is a complete system to look after your body, mind, intellect, spiritual growth, everything together, combined into one path. Yoga emphasizes that we should look after our body also, because if you have the slightest problem, then everything else is gone. You get one thing like a back pain, and then forget about spirituality. You cannot do anything. You can't do meditation, you can't do anything. So it emphasizes on a complete approach, a holistic approach to this. Normally in yoga classes, only asana and pranayama are taught, which are the postures and breathing practices. But there are four more: pratyahara, dharana, dhyana, samadhi. These are the internalization practices of yoga, which in most classes, these are not taught, but they are extremely important, because the quote that we saw in the beginning, that what is more important than in front of you and behind you is what is in you. So pratyahara is that, turning your senses inward and trying to find the source from where you have come out. So this is the goal of these techniques, the internalization techniques. And this is based on the fundamental philosophy of Vedanta, that we are divine in nature, and whatever is manifesting in us as a human being is coming from somewhere very deep. It is not coming from this flesh and bones. It is not coming from the brain. It is not coming from the mind. It is coming from somewhere else. It is like the electricity in this room, which you cannot see, but without the electricity, nothing will be possible. So there is something in us, and we'll discuss it in detail in the next talk. But so the goal of yoga is samadhi, or the state of union with the superconscious principle, which is the goal of all the paths that I talked about. And here it is attained through the process of meditation, which we will do a little meditation today, which is not this meditation, but a different type of meditation. Moving on to the next. The epics, there are two major epics which portray the teachings of Hinduism. One is the Mahabharata. This is the longest poem ever written. It has 100,000 verses. It is supposedly about 6 times bigger than the Iliad and the Odyssey. Very intricately woven story with every type of character imaginable, from the most noble and holy to the most treacherous and cruel. Beautiful. There is a Broadway play on this done by a very famous director. I forget his name now. There's a Broadway play on Mahabharata. He was so enamored by this script of the Mahabharata that he did a Broadway play on it. And Mahabharata contains the Bhagavad Gita. Right in the middle of the Mahabharata is the Bhagavad Gita, because it happens in the battlefield. When we get to Bhagavad Gita, we will discuss that. The Ramayana is the story of Lord Rama, who is the human birth of Lord Vishnu. He's the example of the perfect human. Prominently portrays the monkey god Hanuman, who is extremely popular in India, very popular god. There are a lot of temples in the name of Hanuman. Sages and saints. The land of India has produced hundreds of Hindu saints and sages who have contributed immensely to spread spiritual knowledge among the masses. The first one I will mention is Sri Ramakrishna Paramahamsa, great devotee of Kali, the goddess, guru of the famous Swami Vivekananda. His life is described in the famous book, The Gospel of Sri Ramakrishna. Very amazing saint he is. His teachings are wonderful. One of the examples I will give of his, how beautifully he used to teach. Somebody asked him to explain what is union with God, and he said, it is like a salt doll which gets into the ocean looking for something. What happens to the salt doll? It dissolves in the ocean and it becomes the ocean itself. The salt doll loses its individuality and becomes the ocean. It is now the ocean itself. So he described the union with God like that the union with God is to become God itself, not to realize God. So his teachings are very beautiful. Swami Vivekananda is his famous disciple. He's very famous for his address to the Parliament of World Religions in Chicago in 1893. And you can Google this and just check it out. It's amazing what happened there. There's a big memorial to him built there in that place. In 1893, everything was ladies and gentlemen. And Swami Vivekananda stood up and said, brothers and sisters of America. And there was a standing ovation the moment that was heard. And of course, he's a very prolific writer, and he went around the world giving talks. His books are also very, very beautiful to read. His famous quote is mentioned here: arise, awake, and stop not until the goal is reached. He's talking about the spiritual goal, of course. Ramana Maharshi, extremely famous saint from India, considered to be the most famous teacher of Jnana Yoga. I mentioned that one of the paths, or the path of knowledge in the 20th century. He taught the path of self-inquiry. Swami Chinmayananda is the founder of the Chinmaya Mission, brought the then esoteric teachings to the layman through lectures and books. He's a very prolific writer. He's the founder of the Chinmaya Mission, which has more than 500 centers around the world. America itself has 30 plus centers, which, as I said, we'll get to what the Chinmaya Mission does later. Bhakti Vedanta Swami Prabhupada, he's the founder of ISKCON, those Hare Krishna people in the streets who sing and go. The International Society for Krishna Consciousness. They do a lot of good work, charity work, and they run a lot of programs to help the poor and so on. He's a Bhakti Yoga, so devotion. He taught the Bhagavad Gita and encouraged the ecstatic singing of Lord Krishna's name. Other famous sages and saints: Sri Sri Ravi Shankar, Art of Living Foundation. They have more than 200 million members around the world. One of the biggest organizations. Sadhguru Jaggi Vasudev, Isha Foundation, very famous. He visits USA a lot. Sri Sri Ravi Shankar also visits USA. They have a big center in North Carolina now. Ancient sages, thousands of years ago, Veda Vyasa. Veda Vyasa is considered one of the greatest sages. He's the author of the Vedas, Mahabharata, and many more scriptures. The whole Vedas has been written by him, like he penned them. Uh, Bhrigu, considered by many to be one of the greatest of sages. Yagyavalkya, he's an original reciter of famous scriptures and teacher, of course. Narada is considered the epitome of bhakti yoga or devotion, love to God. A few more things I will mention. Indian classical music. Most of Indian classical music is inspired by devotion to gods and goddesses. The great composers of South India, these are the famous three, Tyagaraja, Muthuswami Dikshidhar, and Shyama Shastri, were all devotees of the Lord. And every song, if you have ever attended any Indian concert, which is a classical concert, say Pandit Ravi Shankar or Anushka Shankar, his daughter, or there are many groups that participate here in Lincoln Center and Carnegie Hall. They may be playing an instrument, but usually the song will be a religious song. It's very difficult to find a non-religious song in Indian classical music. In the other parts of India, there have been great devotees of God who have composed beautiful music. So it's this an offshoot of the religion. The music, the classical music itself is an offshoot of religion. Worship of nature. This is very interesting. Most rivers are named after goddesses. Ganga, Saraswati, Yamuna, Kaveri. Rivers are worshipped because of their life-sustaining irrigation, which benefits the farmers. Even the heavy floods are found to be useful by farmers because of the residue of rich alluvial soil the river leaves when it recedes. I have seen this myself. The melon or the cantaloupe growth starts after the floods recede, and it grows prolifically because of the alluvial soil that the river deposits, which it brought from the mountains, all the minerals it brings and deposits it. So the river is basically a god for the farmers. They just pray to the river all the time. Even so, many mountains are also worshipped as the abode of god and goddesses. Kailash, Arunachala, Parani, Tirupati, Tirumala. As a result of worship of nature, there is also protection of nature. So it's not, people will not cut a tree down unless it's absolutely essential. Of course, I'm not talking about the commercial people, they would do anything, but the people who live in villages and the internal parts of which is about 75% of India still lives in villages. They have enormous respect for nature and they protect trees. If a tree is dying, they will do something to save it, to prop it up, and if it has a disease, they will take care of it and so on. So they have a lot of respect for that. The guru disciple tradition. Is very important. This is and the reason behind the guru and the disciples relationship is because the knowledge that the spiritual guru imparts is considered the highest knowledge. So there is a deep devotion. The student takes care of the guru like his own parents. And inspiring and thought-provoking stories, that is the last one. And do I have the time for one story? I don't think I can tell 3 stories. I'll just tell one story. And then we can go on for the meditation and questions. Karna was a very famous warrior and he was known for his charity. And in India, when you give charity, you give it with your right hand. That is the custom. You give it with your right hand. So Karna was coming out of the river after a bath, and he had something in his hand, in his left hand, and it was something valuable. And there was this beggar man who came and asked him, "Can you give me something?" And he just gave what he had in his hand to the beggar. And somebody asked him afterwards that you gave charity with your left hand. It's not allowed. And what Karna answered is, I didn't want to waste the time to transfer it from my left hand to the right hand. before giving, because my mind might change, and I may not want to give it to the beggar. So this story is told, like to our children in the Bal Vihar, that when you do charity, do it spontaneously and don't expect anything. Don't expect that by doing charity, I'm going to get something. You do it just for the sake of doing. So these stories there are a lot of stories like this in the Hindu literature, which are told to inspire people to do good things in the world. So this is another aspect of Hindu religion. I mentioned Puranas have huge number of stories to inspire people. The story of the sixth idli, I'll probably tell in the next class. It's a very fascinating thing to listen to. It explains the whole system very well. I will probably tell that in the next. Chinmaya Mission Vrindavan, I just want to introduce. This is our ashram in Cranberry Neck Road in Cranberry. It's a Vedantic school specializing in systematic study of Hindu scriptures. The Bal Vihar program for children of all ages, starting from toddlers to high school, where they are taught the noble human values like honesty, non-violence, kindness, and charity embodied in Hindu teachings. Regular Vedantic talks by the resident Swami Shantanandji, cultural programs and celebrations of most Hindu festivals, regular rituals for all gods and goddesses following the strictest rules from the Vedas. Just Google Chinmaya Vrindavan to find us, and we cordially invite you to visit us after the pandemic. Do visit us. I just want to show you pictures of some of our activities quickly. This is the Bal Vihar. You see how beautifully all these kids are dressed. They have so much fun attending these. They are doing a skit. They did a skit after the skit. And you can see the parents with all their cameras ready. It's a beautiful atmosphere. It's a socializing of all the people, and they all dress up well and come. This is the Bal Vihar. This is 350 families, 3 days a week. This is some of the charitable things that we do. This is a Thanksgiving baskets project that we do with Homefront in Trenton. In Thanksgiving, we give a whole meal for a family so that they can make a whole meal for a family of 4. So we basically make these bags that you can see. And these are the bags. See, bag is full of one meal for the family, Thanksgiving meal. And we donate it to the kids. Love to do this kind of work. They assemble this with so much enthusiasm. And all these are donated food items by the members. This is for the pandemic. We donated food in a big program called Seva Diwali, which was all over the US. In 26 states, donated food. Our ashram donated 2,000 pounds of food. That's what you see here in this picture to the Jamesburg Presbyterian Church, actually, food pantry, which they give out to the poor who cannot afford food. And in New Jersey, I think it was 50,000 pounds, if I'm not mistaken. All the organizations together donated 50,000 pounds of food to the food pantry. This is the food pantry. And now we are ready for the meditation. So Tirza, shall we do the meditation first? Or do you want to skip the meditation and do the Q&A? It is up to you. You're muted.
Yes, I know, but now I'm not. So Rajan, that was wonderful. My feeling is because we have the 2 sessions, I'm asking folks to, we still do have a lot of questions, but I think we should continue them for the next session. I would love to do a meditation with you tonight because we are near the end. And people know how to reach me in the interim. If they can't make the second session, I'm happy to relay questions. I mean, it's such a rich and vast topic, and many of us are, still getting our hands around it. But that's my vote. So I'd say take it away. And of course, you and I will be in touch in the interim, and many of our folks will return next time.
अभी नहीं जा रहा हूँ मैं.
Sure, sure. Yes. Okay. Very good.
Person who feeds you day and night, 365 days.
I'll stop the sharing.
And ask for those who are unmuted to please mute yourself so Rajan can proceed with the meditation.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So this meditation will take about 10 minutes. I'll quickly tell you what it is about. In the yogic system, there are the 7 chakras. And one of the chakras is called Swadhisthana chakra. It is located on the spine, 2 inches above the base of the spine. So, and the chakras are part of what is called the subtle body. So in yoga, there are 3 bodies. One is this physical body, which is made up of bones, blood, muscles, ligaments, and so on. And there is another body, which is a subtle body, which is, you can sort of think of it as parallel to this body, but it is made up of what are called nadis or subtle nerves, and the 5 pranas. We talked about the energy prana and the chakras. The chakras are part of the subtle body. The Swadhisthana chakra is 2 inches at the base of the spine. So if you follow your spine downwards, the bottom of the spine is at the place where you're sitting right now. So it's the tailbone is almost touching the chair where you're sitting. Go up 2 inches from the base of that spine, and you have the location of Swadhisthana chakra. The Swadhisthana chakra is important because it is considered to be the source of all our emotions. So if somebody is afraid or anxious, it is said to come from Swadhisthana chakra. It may be a little counterintuitive. People think that it comes from the head, but yes, it eventually comes from the head, emotion. But the source is the Swadhisthana chakra. Actually, this whole region, the abdominal region, the lower abdominal region, is the source of emotions, which later get processed by the brain and become manifest in your life. So anxiety is coming out from the brain, but the source was from the lower abdomen. You know, you have heard the term gut feeling. Where do you think that term came from? It came from there. And modern scientific research has shown some hints for this, and some of them point to what is called the vagus nerve. You can read about it. The vagus nerve is the biggest nerve in your body. It's a nerve system itself, which starts from your abdomen and goes all the way up to the brain. They say that the connection is because of that to some extent. And they also say that the bacteria in your stomach can also cause bad emotions. There are research papers on that too. So in this meditation, what we're going to do is, especially in this COVID times, this is a very useful meditation, is when you focus on the region of the lower abdomen, just focus without doing anything, just silently watch it. Then it tends to dampen the negative emotions and give you some freedom from these emotions. For people who have a lot of anxiety, which come from nowhere, which seems to come from nowhere, this meditation helps a lot. So we will do this meditation now. Just listen to the instructions and try to just follow it yourself. Sit in an upright position, and you can lean back if you want to be comfortable. And we are going to go down, going through all the chakras till we reach the Swadhisthana chakra. And there, once we reach, you just be there with your attention. The first chakra is on the top of your head, in the middle of the top of the head. This is called the Sahasrara chakra. Just linger in the middle of the top of your head for a few seconds. Feel the middle of the top of your head. Come forward till you reach your forehead. Go down the forehead till you reach the space between the two eyebrows. Here is the location of the Agya chakra, the chakra of intellect. Just linger here in the space between the eyebrows for a few seconds. Go down the bridge of the nose till you reach the upper lip, lower lip, lower jaw. Go down the jaw to the neck and then reach the front of your throat, the bulging part of the front of the throat called the Adam's apple. Just linger here for a few seconds. Behind this is the location of Vishuddhi chakra, the chakra of purity. Also, the chakra that controls the thyroid glands. Just linger here. Go down the neck, through the middle of the chest, to the region of the heart. In the region of the heart, on the spine, is the location of Anahata chakra. Anahata means the unstruck sound. There is a sound coming from this place all the time. Going down, you reach the navel. The navel was your connection to your mother. Your connection to the mother was this chakra, the navel chakra or the Manipura chakra. Linger here on your navel for a few seconds and then go down. Keep going down till you reach the bottom of the lowest part of the abdominal region, what we call the sacral region, where the triangle of the pelvic bones, they make a triangle and go inside towards the spine so that you land up 2 inches above the base of the spine, 2 inches above your seat, up the spine. Here there is an empty space. Don't worry if you're not precisely able to reach there. Just reach this region, this area. Let your attention be there. Complete attention to this location. Just like you watch the road when you're driving the car. Total attention here. And I want you to repeat the word relax to yourself in a whisper to ask this part of your body to relax. And also bring a smile to your lips. Even if it is an artificial smile, just bring the smile to your lips while you're paying attention to the Swadhisthana chakra. The Swadhisthana means your own place. And indeed, this is your own place. Your nature and your behavior is defined from here. For the next 1 minute or 2 minutes, just pay attention to this part. Without judgment, without analysis, just noticing this part. And keep the smile on your lips. Okay, whenever you're ready, you can slowly open your eyes and come out of this meditation. Thank you. Hope you enjoyed that.
Thank you so much, Rajan. We do have a lot of questions in the chat, but we are at the 8:30 mark. So I've written down those that I could. Many of you know me, and even if you don't, I put my email in the chat. So feel free to relay your questions to me or to Rajan. We'll be back here in 2 weeks, and I will be checking in, of course, with our speaker. I know he has a lot of more material to cover, but thank you so much. This was really a wonderful evening of learning and reflection. And I wish everyone the best. Stay well, stay safe, and I hope to see you in 2 weeks. Thank you. Namaste.
Thank you very much. Thank you, everybody.
Namaste.
Thank
Thank
you.
you. Stay safe.